Hello once again. I'm back with Stopping by the Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost. Once again, go ahead, look it up on poetryfoundation.org, print out a copy, read through a couple times. Once you have done that, you can go ahead and come back. If not, pause it, go do that. A couple times yourself, at least once or twice aloud. Okay? Alright, so I hope you have go ahead and printed out and read through. And we're going to go ahead and jump right in. Stopping by woods on a snowy evening, Robert Frost. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sound's the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. Alright, let's just talk about it as a whole. We have a poem, it's 4 stanzas. They're almost identical, actually, except for the words they are. They each have 4 iambs, which means they got 4 stresses in each line. If you look at the rhyme scheme, it's 1, 2, and 4 rhyme within the same stanza, and then line 3 rhymes with the next stanza. Okay, so I have A, B, A, and then I have B, C, B, C, C, D, C, and then the last stanza is a variation. We have D, 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 D. Okay? So, rhyme scheme, simple. Okay? Metrically, it's, like I said, 4 almost identical stanzas. We have 4 iambs in each line. Okay, as a whole, the poem seems to have a simple pastoral theme, well grounded in nature. Hopefully you've read the Frost little mini study that I've given you. You know that Robert Frost was all about imagery. It was all about pastoral themes in New England. So this definitely fits in right in there. Okay. The basic conflict involved here is we have the woods and the responsibility that he needs to attend to in society. Okay. Now there are several things that these things can represent. If you think back to Huck Finn, we did have civilization versus the wild. That is definitely going on here. Okay, if you can bring any of those civilization versus the wild themes from Huck Finn into this poem, you would not be far off at all. The woods versus the responsibility. Woods are wildness, madness. It seems irrational. Even though these woods are tame, and he knows that the owners in the village, they're still dark. Okay? It is filling up with snow as well. When you think of snow, you think of winter. Winter, is winter a time of life? No, winter is a time of death. Spring is a time of life. The snow that comes and covers everything, it blankets the land in death. Okay? So, we have death in the woods, and we have life in civilization. Warm, fire, comforting. Also, civilization, that's what the village represents. It represents society. It represents also duty, responsibility, and sensibility, where the woods is the opposite with the irrational. Okay. The owner of the woods is in the village. Okay. He owns the darkness, the irrational, the wild, and he is in the place where he seems safest, which is society, in the village. Okay. There's a separation, wild versus society. And it also says, he will not see me stopping here, line 3, to watch his woods fill up with snow. Why is it so wrong that the speaker is stopping and watching somebody's property fill up with snow? Okay. There is a lot that we can make out of the woods. Okay, that irrational draw that he has towards the woods. Could we call it a death wish that the speaker has? Maybe thoughts of suicide, because he knows if he goes into the woods, that's it, it's over. He'd sit down, he'd be enjoying it, he would be covered with snow just like the woods are, and that would be death. Okay, we know that they're attracted to the lovely, dark, and deep woods. Deep like sleep, deep like oblivion. Okay, so his little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near. The horse, we could say that the horse represents society. Okay, the horse condemns the speaker stopping there. The horse is a reminder of society, of duty, of responsibility. The horse is domesticated and orderly. It's not a part of that dark, deep, wild forest. Okay? There's work, because it's a workhorse, and society. We don't know if he's horseback or on a sleigh or sled. It doesn't say, but I probably imagine it's a sled. Okay, he's between the woods and the frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. It makes sense. Winter. Darkest evening of the year is usually the winter solstice. Okay, that's when here we have our longest night of the year, which would also probably be the darkest middle of winter. Dark, maybe not that there's no light. Maybe there's a little bit of evil lurking out there too. Maybe that's what we mean by dark. Remember, dark can have those two different meanings. So, society, once again in the third stanza, he gives his harness bells a shake. Something's reminding him, hey, what are we doing? You have responsibility, you have duty in the village. Why are we sitting around contemplating the woods? If you go into the woods, you won't be able to finish what it is you're here to do. Okay? So we have the society trying to remind him to come back. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. So he has two separate entities or forces calling at him. He has the duty and responsibility to society, and he has the easy wind and downy flake of the woods drawing his attention. The woods are lovely, dark and deep. We've discussed that. But I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. It's that double line right at the end that really makes a lot of impact. Okay, we know that another a metaphor for sleep always is death. Awakening, birth, sleep, death. Okay, so author or speaker is reminded of his responsibilities, and while the restfulness and the peace of the woods, or death in this case, seems to be calling to him, he does remember that he has promises to keep in life. And he still has a long time to go before he's dead. And miles to go before I sleep. And miles to go before I sleep. It's almost like he's trying to not only reassure, but convince himself with the repetition in the last stanza. Okay, so once again, we have the main conflict. We have responsibility versus death. We have the woods representing death, rest, sleep, lovely, dark, deep. Even though they're filling up with white snow, which is usually a positive, white is usually a more positive color. Here it does represent oblivion, sleep, and death. Okay, so a lot going on in this simple poem. Go ahead and take as many notes as you can right now. I'm going to come back in a couple of seconds with another interpretation of this exact poem. And as soon as I start going through it, you're going to say, oh my gosh, how did I miss that? Okay, we do have the basic conflict of responsibility versus death. Don't forget about that one. But with it being the time of year it is, there's another interpretation that I cannot avoid. Okay, so go ahead, hit pause, take all the notes you need, and then go ahead and come back, and I will start on the other explication. Alright, so we're back. Stopping by the woods on a snowy evening. Yes, the first interpretation was very dark. It was very creepy. It's this man's choosing between life and death. Is he going to go commit suicide, or is he going to continue to champion on? Okay? This one's a little lighter. And I'm going to read it again, and then go through the last interpretation. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep. And miles to go before I sleep. So, my first experience with this poem was in a poetry class at Long Beach State about 13 years ago. Okay, it was one of my introductory poetry classes. It was getting toward the end of the semester, and it was one of those where the professor was like, here you go. Go ahead, analyze it. We'll come back together in about 15 minutes. Okay, so I said, oh, okay, great. It's about somebody. We don't know who the speaker is yet, and he's stopping by woods. I thought he was on a sleigh, like I explained in the other one, or some sort of sled, and they had horses pulling him. Okay, so whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. Well, how does he know that the owner's in the village? And how does he know who the owner is? It seemed kind of funny to me that this person, this speaker, would know so much about somebody's woods and where he was. I mean, how would he know when someone's sleeping or awake? Okay. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. Now, my birthday's in December, and it's usually sometime right around the winter solstice. And I think December, I think winter solstice, I think cold, I think snow, and I think Christmas. And this poem made me think of Christmas. So when he gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake, the only other sounds a sweep of easy wind and downy flake. And then the last one, the woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. Okay, it's obviously a long journey that this person has ahead of them. It seems like they stop for a little bit of reprieve. He's on a sled. He knows that the owner's not there. He knows he's somewhere else. He has little horses. And I thought, well, little horses with antlers. Those are called reindeer. So my little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near. Okay. Santa goes and delivers presents to kids at farmhouses. Of course, the reindeer are going to be like, hey, what's going on? We're not there yet. He gives his harness bells a shake. I thought Jingle Bells right away. To ask if there is some mistake. Like, hey, let's go. And I always thought this was a poem about a rare moment where Santa kind of takes a little time out, staring across at how simple things are in the woods. I mean, here it can still mean avoidance of responsibility, just like in the other one. Society can mean back to duty and responsibility. Okay, but, you know, thinking about Santa and what he does in one night, if you believe it, going to all the houses and putting all the presents, I can see how one might get a little tired. And he's appreciating the beauty in something simple. The woods are lovely, dark, and deep, but I have promises to keep. He's got presents to deliver. And miles to go before I sleep. He's got to go a lot of ways, delivering presents to everybody in the world. And miles to go before I sleep. Now, I had a really good poetry professor who, when I explained this in front of the class, had a lot of smiles. And there was a lot of head nodding. And there was a lot of, oh, hey, that's a great interpretation. Never told me I was wrong. I did justify it with what I found in the poem. But steered me toward the more conventional explications of the poem. But it goes to show you, good poetry masterful poetry like this can have multiple meanings. Okay, we can see this as a man contemplating suicide and duty and responsibility, and we can see exactly, the remembrances of society, and he remembers his responsibilities and moves on. Or we could see it as Santa Claus stopping for a rest and Reindeer telling him, hey, buddy, time to go, let's move on. Okay, different interpretations of the same poem. Poem uses the same words. It's how our experience and our training has shaped what we're looking for within the poem. Okay, I hope you enjoyed it. Once again, questions up on Edmodo. I will be answering them as soon as I get a chance. If we need to start a discussion or you have some insights, or hey, what about this, Mr. Covington? How about that? I'm open to any of that as well. When we share ideas, we get smarter together. Okay? See you in the next video. Bye-bye.